All right, so today we're diving into the world of Thai dating, but from a bit of a different angle.
Yeah, we're not exactly giving out pickup lines today.
No, not quite. We're taking a look at well, let's say what might not work so well, especially for foreigners.
That's right.
And we're basing this deep dive on a really interesting YouTube video by a Thai woman who's basically, sharing some insights on what makes some foreigners a little less appealing than they might think.
I think appealing is putting it nicely.
Okay, maybe not appealing, more like making some cultural missteps that can really backfire, especially when it comes to dating.
Right, and what's fascinating is that this video isn't just about, like, superficial dating advice.
No, it's way deeper than that.
It's like a window into Thai culture and those values that shape how people interact and perceive each other, especially in the context of romance.
Exactly. Like, we've all heard about how important first impressions are, but this video goes beyond those, basic tips you usually hear.
Right, it's not just about wearing the right shoes or remembering your table manners.
It's more about understanding those subtle cues, those underlying values that can really make or break a connection, especially in a cross-cultural setting.
Absolutely. And one of the biggest takeaways here is how important this concept of Khraeng-jai is in Thai culture.
Khraeng-jai. Okay, I've heard that term before, but I'm not sure I fully grasp it.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's kind of hard to translate directly, but it's basically this deeply ingrained sense of consideration, humility, and avoiding anything that might make others feel uncomfortable or burdened.
Okay. So it's like thinking about how your actions impact others, but on a whole other level.
Exactly. It's about being mindful, considerate, and always striving to maintain that sense of harmony in social interactions.
Interesting. So how does Khraeng-jai tie into what foreigners might be doing wrong? Because according to our YouTuber, there's a certain, let's call it an attitude that some foreigners bring that just doesn't fly with Thai women.
Yeah, she uses the word ego, which might sound a bit harsh, but it really gets to the heart of the matter.
Okay, ego. So like being arrogant or self-centered.
Right. You see, in Thai culture, humility is highly valued, while arrogance is, well, a major turnoff, especially in romantic contexts.
So it's not just about being like modest, it's about genuinely considering the feelings and perspectives of others, which in a way is the essence of Khraeng-jai.
Right. Precisely. It's this unspoken code of conduct that guides social interactions and helps maintain that harmony we talked about.
And this is where some foreigners, particularly those from cultures that maybe value assertiveness or individualism, might unintentionally, step on some toes.
It's exactly it. They might not even realize they're doing anything wrong, but their actions can be perceived very differently in a culture that prioritizes Khraeng-jai.
Got it. So let's say you're a foreigner who's used to, I don't know, speaking your mind directly, or maybe you come from a culture where it's normal to like brag a little about your accomplishments.
Right, right.
How could those behaviors be perceived in Thailand, especially, if you're trying to impress someone?
Well, think of it this way. Imagine you're at a dinner party and someone's constantly interrupting others, talking over them, and boasting about their wealth or achievements.
Yeah, not exactly someone you'd want to hang out with again.
Exactly. And in Thai culture, where maintaining harmony and showing respect are so important, those kinds of behaviors can be especially jarring.
So while those behaviors might not be intended as rude, they can come across as, well, disrespectful or even a little clueless within the context of Thai culture, right?
Exactly. It all comes down to cultural sensitivity.
Hmm.
It's not about erasing your personality or conforming to every single norm. It's about being aware of the potential impact of your actions and adapting your behavior to show respect for the values and customs of the people you're interacting with.
Okay, so less me, and more understanding and respecting the us of the situation, especially when it comes to navigating a different culture.
That's a great way to put it. It's about finding that balance between being yourself and being mindful of the cultural context. And that's where things get really interesting.
So let's unpack that a bit more. The YouTuber in this video, she shares some specific examples of what Thai women find off-putting in foreigners. And I think it'd be helpful to go through a few of those.
Sure, let's dive into some of those examples.
Because I think they can really illustrate those nuances we've been talking about and show how, even seemingly small things can be perceived very differently across cultures.
Absolutely. One story that comes to mind is about this foreigner who was dating a Thai woman and constantly criticized her family for, believe it or not, eating on the floor.
Eating on the floor, really?
Yep. He called it dirty and even insulted her parents for being, low class, which is just, wow.
I mean, that's a pretty extreme example, but it definitely shows how a lack of cultural understanding can lead to, well, some serious missteps.
What's interesting is that in many Western cultures, eating on the floor might be seen as unusual or even disrespectful.
Right, like something you'd only do at a picnic or something.
But in many parts of Thailand, it's actually a common tradition, especially in rural areas. It's seen as a way of connecting with one's roots, showing humility, and sharing a meal as a family, all on a level playing field.
So it's not just about where you eat, but the meaning behind it, right? It's about sharing a meal as a family in a way that emphasizes equality and togetherness.
Precisely. And this ties back to Khraeng-jai. It's about understanding that actions can have different meanings in different cultures and being respectful of those differences, even if they seem strange or unfamiliar at first.
Makes sense. So instead of criticizing, this guy could use this as an opportunity to, I don't know, learn something new, to connect with his girlfriend's family on a deeper level, right?
Absolutely. Imagine if he had asked about the tradition, shown a genuine interest in understanding why they eat on the floor, and maybe even tried it himself.
It could have been a bonding experience, a chance to really connect with Thai culture in a meaningful way.
Exactly. But instead, he chose judgment over curiosity, and that, unfortunately, created a rift in the relationship.
So curiosity and an open mind go a long way, especially when navigating cultural differences.
Couldn't agree more. And this brings us to another point the YouTuber makes, which is about communication styles, something that can be tricky in any relationship, but especially in cross-cultural ones.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about communication because
Yeah,
I'm guessing there are some nuances there that foreigners might not be aware of.
there are indeed, and I think it's a topic worth exploring in more detail.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the YouTuber, she tells this story about a foreigner who is visiting his girlfriend's family in Isan.
Isan, that's in northeastern Thailand, right?
That's right, known for its really rich culture and beautiful countryside.
I've heard great things about it.
Oh yeah, definitely worth a visit. Anyway, so this guy is visiting his girlfriend's family, and they're super excited to welcome him.
Makes sense.
They prepare this amazing meal and invite him to join them on the floor to eat, which is like a pretty common tradition in that region.
Okay, so far so good. Sounds like a nice welcoming atmosphere.
Right. But here's where things go a little sideways. Instead of embracing the tradition, going with the flow, the guy's like totally appalled.
Really?
Yeah, he refuses to eat on the floor, calls it dirty, even starts insulting the parents for being low class, which is, I mean, come on.
Wow, talk about missing the mark. You can't just walk into someone's home and start criticizing their customs, especially when they're being so hospitable.
It's a textbook example of how a lack of cultural awareness can lead to some really offensive behavior.
I mean, in a lot of Western cultures, eating on the floor might be seen as, unusual or even, yeah, disrespectful.
Right, exactly. But in Aizen and many other parts of Thailand, it's totally normal.
It's more than just normal, right? You were saying it's actually a sign of humility, connection to one's roots.
Exactly. And this is where Khraeng-jai comes back into play. It's about understanding that actions can have different meanings in different cultures.
Right, and not jumping to conclusions or making judgments based on your own limited perspective.
Exactly. So instead of criticizing this guy, could have taken it as an opportunity to learn something new, to connect with his girlfriend's family on a deeper level.
Right, he could have asked about the tradition, shown an interest, maybe even tried it himself.
Yeah, it could have been a really cool experience.
Yeah,
But instead, he chose judgment over curiosity.
and probably ruin his chances with the family.
Probably, yeah. So yeah, curiosity, open mind, essential tools when you're navigating cultural differences.
Absolutely. The YouTuber also has this other story about communication styles, which I think is fascinating.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
It's interesting how much we can learn about a culture through these real-life anecdotes.
Definitely. It's one thing to read about customs and values, but seeing how they play out in real life situations.
That's what brings it to life. So what's this story about communication styles?
So this one involves a foreigner who just wouldn't stop talking. He'd dominate conversations, interrupt people, and basically every interaction was like a one-man show.
I can see how that would get old pretty quickly, even in cultures where being more outspoken is the norm.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. But in Thai culture, where listening and respecting others' opinions is so highly valued, that kind of communication style is a big no-no.
Yeah, it comes across as really disrespectful, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you have to remember, Thai communication is often a lot more subtle with a lot of nonverbal cues.
Right. It's about reading the room, sensing those unspoken dynamics.
Exactly. So this foreigner, even if he thought he was being engaging or whatever, he was actually violating those subtle rules of communication that are so important in Thai culture.
So even something as basic as a conversation can become a cultural minefield if you're not tuned in to those cues.
Absolutely. And it's these kinds of misunderstandings that can lead to a lot of friction, especially when you're first getting to know someone.
It makes you realize how important it is to be aware of those differences in communication styles.
It's not just about what you say, but how you say it and how much space you give others to express themselves.
Speaking of space, I remember the YouTuber also talked about physical touch, which is another area where things can get tricky.
Oh, yeah. Physical touch is something you have to be really careful with in Thailand.
I mean, a hug or a kiss on the cheek might be totally normal in some cultures, but
But in Thai culture, physical touch is generally reserved for close friends and family.
makes sense. So no hugs for strangers.
Yeah, probably not the best idea, especially if you're meeting someone for the first time.
What about that friendly pat on the back?
I'd say err on the side of caution. You know, stick to the way for now. It's
Yeah.
always a safe and respectful option.
The way is definitely a good go-to. It's like a universal sign of respect.
Exactly. And it shows that you're making an effort to understand and adapt to Thai customs.
It's funny how much we rely on physical touch in some cultures.
It's true. We don't even realize it sometimes.
But it's a good reminder to be mindful of those differences and to observe how people interact in different cultures.
Right. When in doubt, watch and learn. Pay attention to those subtle cues, the body language, the tone of voice.
So less about imposing your own cultural norms and more about adapting to the context of the situation.
Exactly. Be a respectful guest, not a bull in a china shop.
I love that analogy. So we've talked about communication, physical touch, but I remember the YouTuber also brought up this interesting point about how some foreigners misunderstand what Thai women are looking for in a partner.
Right, especially when it comes to finances.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that because money can be a sensitive subject in any relationship.
It really can.
Yeah.
But what the YouTuber is trying to debunk is this misconception that Thai women are primarily interested in money or that they're looking for a sugar daddy.
Like those old stereotypes about mail order brides.
Exactly. Those stereotypes are not only offensive, but they're completely inaccurate.
So if it's not about money, what is it that Thai women are looking for? I mean, obviously everyone's different, but are there any general qualities that are particularly important?
Well, like in most cultures, kindness, respect, honesty, a good sense of humor, those are all important. But what's really emphasized in Thai culture is the idea of kunai, which basically translates to goodness within.
So it's about having a good heart, being a decent person.
Exactly. It's about those inner qualities that make someone a good partner, a good friend.
So while financial stability might be a factor, it's not the defining characteristic.
Right. What's more important is that sense of genuine connection, shared values, and that kunai that shines through.
So it's not about flashing your cash, it's about showing your true character.
Exactly. The YouTuber also talked about a few more specific behaviors that can be turnoffs, like being rude to service staff.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
It's about respect, treating everyone with dignity and politeness regardless of their job.
Right, so even if you're having a bad day, you don't take it out on the waiter or the taxi driver.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that interconnectedness, that sense of community that's so important in Thai culture.
And what about not learning any basic Thai phrases? Is that a deal breaker?
I wouldn't say it's a deal breaker, but it definitely doesn't make a good impression.
I could see that. It shows a lack of effort, right?
It's like saying, I don't really care enough to learn even a few words of your language.
Even if you're not fluent, making an effort goes a long way.
It shows that you're genuinely interested in their culture.
Okay, and lastly, the YouTuber talked about talking too much about money.
Right. That's another one that could be a turnoff.
Because it comes across as boastful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a bit shallow.
Like you're trying to impress someone with your wealth instead of who you are as a person.
It's about emphasizing those deeper qualities, those shared values that really matter.
So we've covered a lot here. Khraeng-jai, communication styles, specific behaviors, and I think we've gained some valuable insights into the world of Thai dating.
It's been a fascinating exploration of Thai culture and how to approach cross-cultural interactions with more sensitivity.
And these insights go beyond dating too, right? They apply to traveling, doing business, making friends, anytime you're interacting with people from different cultures.
Absolutely. It's all about being a mindful traveler, a respectful guest in their cultural home.
Okay, so let's talk about that a bit more.
Yeah.
How can we apply these insights to other areas of our lives?
So we've been talking about how understanding Thai culture can make you, well, a better dater.
Right, but like you said, these principles apply even beyond beyond dating.
Exactly. It's not just about romance. It's about navigating any kind of cross-cultural interaction with sensitivity and respect.
Okay, so, like, what kind of situations are we talking about?
Well, imagine you're traveling in Thailand, for example.
Okay, I can picture it. Now I'm at one of those bustling night markets, surrounded by delicious food, colorful souvenirs.
Exactly. And you see something you want to buy. How do you approach the vendor?
Hmm. Well, usually I'd probably just walk up and ask about the price.
Right. But remember Khraeng-jai.
Okay, so maybe I start with a friendly sawasdee, a smile.
Exactly. Approach with respect.
Yeah.
Allow the vendor to engage at their own pace.
And even if I want to haggle a bit, I shouldn't be too aggressive, right?
Right. It's about maintaining that harmony, avoiding confrontation.
Got it. So even shopping can be a cultural exchange if you approach it with the right mindset.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And these principles are even more important in formal settings, like, say, a business meeting.
Okay, so let's say I'm meeting with potential business partners in Thailand.
Think about those communication styles we discussed. Avoid interrupting, listen attentively, and be mindful of nonverbal cues.
So even if I'm super excited about my ideas, I shouldn't dominate the conversation.
Right? And remember, patience is key in Thai culture. Building trust and rapport takes time.
And definitely no showing up late.
Punctuality is a sign of respect.
Okay, so I'm being punctual, I'm listening more than I'm talking, and no high fives after we close the deal.
Maybe stick with the way for
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Got it. So whether I'm in a market, a boardroom, or just, exploring a temple, these principles can really help me avoid those cultural blunders.
Exactly. It's all about being a mindful traveler, a respectful guest in their cultural home.
This deep dive has really been eye-opening. I realize I still have so much to learn about Thai culture.
And that's the beauty of it. It's a continuous journey of learning and understanding.
So as we wrap up, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
I'd say it's the importance of empathy and perspective taking, really trying to see the world through someone else's eyes.
Stepping outside our own cultural bubbles and realizing that there are so many different ways of being, of interacting, of showing respect.
Exactly. And by embracing those differences with curiosity and respect, we can build more meaningful connections, whether it's in Thailand or anywhere else in the world.
Well said. So to our listeners, keep those minds open, keep exploring, and we'll catch you on the next Deep Dive.